This webinar is a little bit of a precursor webinar to the Elevate conference coming up July 12th and 13th. We have an incredible conference with some incredible partners planned for you. I want to thank all of our sponsors who make Elevate happen. And we want to give you a little bit of preview of what's to come with Elevate. So we have a little preview video here for you.
Unleash the power of events to energize your donors and amplify your mission. Join us at the Elevate Conference in 2025, where you'll learn the essential tools for planning a successful fundraising event. Book your tickets now for March 12th and 13th. This dynamic hybrid conference, hosted at Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and streamed live for our virtual audience, will equip you with practical tools, demos, and templates that you can put to work immediately. Don't miss out. Secure your spot today at Elevate 2025. Visit elevatenonprofit.com to register now. Elevate Conference 2025 is brought to you by Swaim Strategies and the AV Department, powered by elevatenonprofit.com.
Well, this 2-day conference is a deep dive into all things fundraising. We like to say it's taking your fundraising event to school. Day 1 is going to be the basics that we're going to be building off of, and day 2 is really kind of the dynamic, deeper dive into what can really power your fundraising event. We're developing these 4 webinars. We have a total of 4 for you to enjoy before the conference as a way for you to have building blocks for you to sort of build off of. And we have some incredible speakers lined up bringing you keynote experiences of their events, what they're doing that's working, tools that you can apply. All of our expert speakers are bringing panel discussions to the table and a ton of resources. So we hope that you will scan that QR code and join us at Elevate. And if you're already registered for Elevate, we're very excited to see you there. And we want to remind you that we have our podcast available to you, the Fundraising Elevator, as a free resource every day that you can find discussions and deep dives with experts about what's working in the fundraising world. Speaking of experts,
Thanks so much, Sam. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm excited to see you all at Elevate. So join us. You can join us in person in Portland, virtually. We'd love to see you. I will be in the post-lunch storytelling slot. I believe that has kind of become my banner place to keep us all rolling into our event program. And so what we wanted to do today was to give you some grounding in some of the pieces that we use to plot and help people plan their story and the story of their event. And so we're going to go through what we call the 5-chapter arc today. I'm going to keep it kind of basic and simple so that you can start to ruminate on these things and bring your program questions to the conference. So let's take a look at what's happening with the arc of your event. And what we really want to do, what I really want to do, is if you leave with nothing else today, is to start to think about your event program as a whole, as a story in and of itself. This should look familiar for those of us who are of a certain age. This is sort of how we started to learn storytelling in school. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. It goes up and it comes back down. And there's a reason that these shapes should be familiar to us. It's how we walk through the world. It's how we as humans expend energy and attention. And so when we're crafting the program for our event, we really want to lean into the natural cadence that's already happening with our audience so that their journey through our event starts to feel effortless, as if the things being put in front of them are the things that they are ready for. And then when they are done with them, we also are done with them. And so what I like to think about is this arc of your event program happening as actually 3 arcs. And when those 3 arcs are happening in tandem, you've hit the sweet spot of your program. And so when we think about what these 3 different arcs are, they should support your storytelling, they should support your fundraising, and most importantly, they should support the connection and the cohesion in the community that you're creating at your event around your mission. So the 3 arcs are the audience arc, the story arc, and the fundraising arc. So when I talk about the audience arc, I'm talking about group dynamics. It's happening right now. hopefully you're still invested and energized in this free webinar and thinking about your program and what that is, and ooh, who's Kristen and is she going to tell a goofy joke? Eventually, though, you're going to start to think about that email inbox that's piling up, maybe your next meeting that you've got to get on, and your attention is going to start to wane. So the goal is for you to sequence your program so that you're matching the height of your storytelling and your fundraising at the peak engagement of audience energy. You can't fight this. It's going to happen. No matter how much you want folks to be radically involved and super excited about what you're doing, at some point they're going to time out at your event. And this is why we're promoting shorter programs, because if we've learned nothing else since the pandemic, attention spans have really, really started to contract. And people are being very sort of careful about how they spend their time and where they give of their free time. And so you want to respect that and lean into what they're willing to give you and not ask them to give you more. The story arc is your program. This is the pieces that are happening on your stage, but I also want to call out, and we'll do this when we start talking about chapter 1, that this is what also happens prior to your event. Your story starts well before your MC takes that first moment at the mic, at the podium at your event. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So your story arc extends beyond the walls of your event. And so you really want to be cognizant when you have folks in the room where you are in your arc, what they need to move along with you into the story of your mission and your programs. Fundraising arc, this is the most important thing to be thinking about, but this goes nowhere and doesn't hit the highest highs it can possibly hit if it is working against your audience arc and your story arc. When all three of these are happening in the same sequence, they're not working against each other. One of them isn't dragging the other one down. And energetically, and in terms of the possibilities of your event, you're going to hit all of the peaks that are possible for you. When you put them against one another, you're costing yourself the attention of your audience. And you're asking for more than they're willing to give, and they'll check out. This works in that, when we talk about hybrid events, this works in the hybrid space as well, where you have multiple audiences, some in the room and some online. And so those are pieces you need to think about when you're thinking about the story sequence of the program of your event, is where those audiences are and what it is that they need. So let's dive into what this arc looks like when we move through it as 5 separate chapters. This also sort of helps us think about it as a book, so chapter 1 is your welcome. And I want to argue that this actually starts well in advance of the event itself. This should start when your potential donors at your event start to hear about the event. This could be a save the date. This could be an invite. And if you're doing it really, really well, this actually starts fairly quickly after the end of the prior year's event. If you think about that welcome sequence and that orienting people to your event and what its purpose is and what their place in that community is, starts well in advance of when they show up. It's when they get that invite, when they start to think about, is this how I want to spend my time? And then when they say yes, you should start the storytelling. You should start the hand extended to them to make them feel like they are a part of your program, how they are being communicated to, what it is that they need. Anytime you put a barrier up to participation or make people ask a lot of questions about how do I go, where do I go, what do I go, what do I need, you're actually costing yourself energy. So this is about ease. This is about communicating the details so that people know where to go and what they do. This is thinking about wayfinding at your event. Is it intuitive to go down this hallway and make a left? Put up signs. You want to remove barriers here? This is welcome. It makes people feel like they were expected. It makes them feel like you want them there. When you don't do that, you are costing yourself attention from them. They will not give you as much attention and energy because they had to expend it on all of these other things. So the quickest way to lose folks is to not invite them in and make them feel at home. So when we think about the welcome, often we forget that registration is part of that. Registration absolutely is part of your welcome. So when I walk up to your check-in and I've purchased a ticket, please know that I'm coming. Please greet me. If I'm not in your system and I have followed the cues you've given me up to that point, I all of a sudden don't feel like I'm part of the community. I'm not expected. So this welcome, this chapter 1, I think is a lot broader sometimes than we think about it. Often we talk about it as when that MC hits the stage and starts talking, what is it we want them to know about the event? And that is certainly part of it, but it has sort of a precursor to it that makes it that when that MC starts, everybody is ready because they know that they were expected. They feel a part of the event. There's a seat for them. They're ready to go. So this welcome that happens from the stage is also where you set expectations and tell people how to participate. You're going to do this most easily by having a host, by having an MC. This person takes the stage and they act on stage as your stage manager, which is really helpful. They actually introduce and call up the next speaker, close them out, introduce and call up the next speaker, but also they become this lovely, call them the narrator. They're this extended hand to your audience that say, hey, come along with me. And every time that MC takes the stage, your audience can lean back and relax because they know that person is going to tell them what comes next. They don't have to wonder. They don't have to have questions. They just know, kind of like the bouncing ball over the words, that this person is going to walk them through what they need to know. In this welcome sequence, it's how you establish rules of engagement. If you are engaging a hybrid audience where you have people turning in virtually to a broadcast, it's where you let them know the tools that are in use. Ideally, this is also happening before your broadcast starts with cues that are happening on their viewing screen. Maybe you have an announcement, video announcement that comes on and walks them through how they can donate for the evening, where they can call for tech support. It's all of the pieces you're giving them so that they can navigate their experience with the least amount of barrier. But most importantly, this welcome is how you communicate to people they can be a part of the community and in fact that they are. This is where you start to establish that they're at home here. They should feel at home, they should feel relaxed enough so that they can start to engage with your mission and they don't have a lot of other questions going on. So this is chapter 1. You're establishing your welcome. You're inviting everybody in just like you would at your home. Chapter 2 is where you start to move into the story of your mission. No matter how many times people in the room at your event have been there, let's say Joe has come for the last 10 years to your event, ideally, your work is continuing to evolve. And so each year, checking in and letting them know what you're doing and how you see your work and how you're communicating it to people allows you to bring long-term donors along. It also allows you to bring along folks that Joe invited. Let's say Joe bought a table this year and he's filling it with people who are important to him but don't know you yet. This is your opportunity to let them know what it is that you do, where it is that you are. And so when we're talking about the mission, we do this in 2 parts. We call it a show and a tell. This is you building the case for your organization by speaking about why your mission matters. So we have a show and a tell. Often it is your org speaker and a video about your organization. We like mixing it up between a speaker and a video. It allows you to play with multiple levels of engagement for people in the room. Some people do really well listening to somebody speaking. Some people do really well in a concise video. Video also allows you the elements of music and narration and we call it B-roll footage, where you get visuals of your work in action. It can be a great way to take people literally inside the buildings of your organization where they may not otherwise be able to do that. So when we talk about this, we often get the question, how long? How long should my executive director speak? Not long. This whole sequence between your organizational video, which is the scope, if you think about it as a funnel, the organizational video holds sort of the broadest width of your work. It talks about what it is that you do and what that looks like. And then it narrows into your organizational speaker. Often it is your executive director. Sometimes it's not. But your organizational speaker giving the heartbeat of that work and giving the vision and leadership voice around that work. The combination of these 2 pieces, and we can get into more details at the conference if you join us, the combination of these 2 pieces 8 minutes. I know I just heard a few people fall over because I know a lot of people have executive directors that feel compelled to give really, really long speeches. What we have to do is we have to think about that audience arc. They're only going to give us so much attention. And when this piece goes on longer than it would, look what comes next. We're teeing up our fundraising. And all of a sudden, when this piece becomes bloated and protracted, it pushes that fundraising over the peak, pushes it over the height of engagement, and you start to financially see repercussions for the length of duration here. So often we talk about having a 4 to 5 minute video, a 3 to 4 minute organizational speech. The sequence of these can intermix or can change based on what happens with your organizational video. It may make more sense if your speaker is not the most engaging speaker. It may make sense to have them go first and put a video that sort of has a little more swell and power to it after them so that you are building into your fundraising peak there at your special appeal. The opposite may also be true. It may be that your organizational speaker, your executive director, carries all the relationships in their room, is a powerhouse speaker, and you sequence them after your org video right before your special appeal, and they carry the energy into that moment. That's really for you to navigate within your organizations, but it's a show and a tell. This is how very quickly and succinctly you can re-engage folks with your mission and bring new folks into the heartbeat of your work so that they understand what it is that you do, so that when you ask them for money, they have this in their mind before you go into your specific story of impact. So when we talk about chapter 3, we are talking about your fundraising. There are a couple components that can happen here. Sequence becomes really, really critical. So if you are going to have a live auction, some folks are phasing this out. Some folks are keeping a couple of key items that are really mission-based items to build some momentum going into that special appeal. Live auction before your paddle raise. If there is only a few items, it'll help build your momentum. We're really, really asking folks to take a look at the size of the auction and to pull back on it and to really expend that energy into their special appeal and getting pre-commits for their special appeal. So when we go back to the idea of 3 arcs happening at once, you want to time it and get your story right so that your fundraising is happening at the peak of engagement. This should also be the peak of emotional connection and impactful storytelling. So when we talk about a special appeal has 3 components. You want to tell a specific story of impact. So prior to this, you've talked about your organization and its vision and its strength moving forward. And then you want to show your audience what your impact looks like. And we have found that one story of impact tells the story of your breadth and depth. Your audience can extrapolate that they are helping multiple people in many ways. And showing one story of impact allows you to go deep on that story and really show how it is that you're changing lives. So you're going to tell a story of impact. You're going to make an ask for support. Ideally, you are doing this with a fundraising host or a benefit auctioneer. And you're going to collect, have a mechanism for having donations come in. The most active way to do this is with a paddle. Sam is going to go through this at Elevate. For those of you keeping score, we're going to go through what a paddle raise looks like. That's the most sort of active form of engagement. But this needs to happen when people are the most lean in. So single story of impact to show your work with you telling the story, making an ask for financial support, and then making a collection of that support in the room, because there is a lovely element that's happening in the room in terms of the audience energetic arc, and that's peer pressure and the want for people to be seen and to be seen contributing. And so an active appeal allows people to do that. It allows them to hold up a card and be thanked by a benefit auctioneer from the stage for their donation, and to be seen by the people they're at the table with, and to feel like they were seen. To have benefit auctioneer read my name and say, "Kristen, thank you for your support at the $500 level tonight. I feel like my time is being used well. I also feel like I'm a part of something. I'm a part of this community in this room." So building energy there, and we will also at the conference talk about how you should be building energy here by making sure that you have pre-commits at your top levels so that when this starts, you have momentum and you have donors in the room versus them going through the top 3 levels of your appeal and just hearing crickets. So there's some technical pieces to your appeal here, but really you want to be thinking about how it is that you're building upon what became before so that you can move into the momentum of this moment. And I have made very quick and light of chapter 3, but chapter 3 is crucial. And this is really where you should be spending time both on the storytelling piece, but also on the fundraising strategy piece to have those pre-commits in alignment so that you know where to start your appeal and build momentum in the room so that people have the opportunity to surprise both you and themselves. Now, the place that we see people able to have the most impact on rearranging their program for increased fundraising is right here. And that feels weird to say, but the celebration. Often the celebration gets placed too early in the program, and the cost is that fundraising peak happening on the back end of your arc. So when we talk about celebration, we're talking about if you have a keynote, if you have honorees, if you have a band that's going to play, all of those pieces that are like the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, whatever metaphor you want to bring into play here. But these are the pieces that people will stay for. And they are also the pieces that when they are sequenced later will not be at a detriment to your fundraising. This is how you send people out on a high note. This is where people don't sit through a really, really long program. And then when they're at the bottom back into that arc and you finally ask them for money, they get mad because you haven't used their time well. This is where they're able to be like, Kristen, I was announced from the stage. I gave $500. Now I can lean back and lean into this honoree section. People will stay for these pieces. These are where you're starting to come down the other side. People are starting to think about if they've engaged a babysitter, if they have soft pants that are really calling to them at home, if they have somewhere they need to be. If you start to lose people here, it is not at the cost of your fundraising. Please fight the urge not to have a keynote or honorees before your fundraising. I think a lot of people think though that's the focus. Your mission is enough. Your mission should be the focus. And you should be communicating to your donors in the room that you take fundraising seriously enough to put it at the highest peak of your program arc versus waiting a lot later in the program when the energy is starting to drain out of the room. Again, you can't fight that audience arc. It's happening. So lean into it here by having that entertainment feel good when people are on the downside of that arc. And this, again, take a look at how things shift. I think of it kind of like a train on a track, that when you start to push too far one way, you can see how the other pieces that you really want at the peak of engagement start to fall off. So it really is about sequencing here. And by moving your celebration afterwards, it will feel that much better because you've done the business and everybody can lean in and be a part of the celebration and what that looks like. And then chapter 5 is gratitude. Send them, again, you're sending them out on a high note. Make them feel good. You're starting to complete that audience arc. Say thank you. Say thank you to all the people. You've got board members, you've got volunteers, you've got sponsors, you've got donors who showed up for you in the room. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think as organizations, we can always do more to thank everyone who helps support our work. And this is a really great way to send them out the door feeling like you saw them, that they were a part of something, and that you are grateful for them. It is a great way to tee up your next communications with them to thank them again. Don't let the next time you talk to them be the first time you thank them. Make them feel like they were a part of something. I think sometimes on the front end, we spend way too much time in advance of the success of the event, thanking and thanking and thanking and thanking and thanking. When if we make a subtle shift here, then people feel like they're being thanked because of the success of the event and that this was an amazing night we were all a part of together. So again, this celebration gratitude piece, it may be that they come together and are short, and it may be that you don't have very much celebration and it folds into this Maybe it's gratitude, and then you move out into a cocktail party with a band. But I think thinking about this is that's like lovely slope into the rest of their day and what that energetically should feel like for them after they have shown up for you, supported you, been a part of your organization is a really great way for people to leave going, wow, that was fantastic. My time was used well. I felt like I was a part of something. And I feel like I was really honored and thanked and shown gratitude for making the effort to show up here. So it's not um it's not just going to happen that people show up at our event. They show up because they want to be a part of your mission. And this is a way to remind them of that as they're heading out. So these 5 chapters working together are how you can keep your eye on the bigger story. I think sometimes when we say, keep your eye on the bigger story, people are just like, I can't control all these things at once. So breaking them down into 5 chapters that you can really focus in on and make sure that those pieces are shored up and in the right order. Thinking about your 3 arcs that are happening at the same time to create a cohesive event story so that they are all working and feeding on each other instead of working against each other. Folks have to be able to understand your organization a little bit, which is that about the mission piece, but you don't, because you don't want them spending valuable time during your appeal trying to figure out, wait, what is this organization? What do they do? You want them focused in on the story of impact that you're telling. But they also should be in emotional alignment with you going into this to be able to understand your appeal story. If they think you're a housing organization and you go into your appeal story and really you're providing, say, food, you're a food bank, then there's a disconnect for them in understanding and being, and they're going to stay in that state of emotional disconnect, trying to figure that out instead of leaning into the story and being emotionally attached and compelled to what you're doing. If you give them the candy first, your celebration, gratitude, etc., there is no need for them to eat Brussels sprouts. So sequence accordingly. I promise they'll stay. How you make them feel as they leave imprints on their impression of the event afterward. So don't take their money and kick them out. Think about what that dismount from the fundraising peak looked like as well for them to feel like they've had the full experience. These are the quick and dirty. These are the pieces, these are the 5 chapters of the event arc that we put together and think how we think about what happens on that stage and what happens before people get to that event. Please join us at Elevate to learn about more of your program and how you can put these pieces together.